Hello, everybody. I am so excited to have a wonderful man with me who has helped me so much with my own taxes. Somebody who's just been just a really great friend and somebody who's helped me so much in my business. Henry, I've known you
Yeah.
since a long time ago, and
Yeah.
you're just so professional on everything finances and taxes. I can't thank you
Thank
enough
you.
for this. And when Trump's taxes were out, my first reaction was like, what will Henry think of this? So hopefully you'll be able to shed some light on your thoughts, because you know so much about this, and I hope our listeners learn something about it too. So welcome, Henry. How are you doing?
Yeah. Good. Very good. This year has been extremely challenging, really busy. I think I could speak for most of the tax professionals in this country saying that we've been extremely overwhelmed, not only by the amount of work that we've gotten, new clients, but also all the questions and confusion regarding the IRS, the state delays. It's been a wild ride this year.
Yeah. So can you tell us
So
briefly, like, in your own words, what you do? I'm scared to cough now. I swear to God, I don't have it around me. Can you tell us what you do?
yeah. Yeah, so basically, I have my own business. I worked for my mom. That's how I got started. My mom, she was a housewife, when I was a child, and her and my dad eventually they split up, and she decided to go into what she originally went to school for, which was accounting. So she started her own tax practice. When I was in middle school, I was basically her computer technician. This was like in the mid to late 90s, and so I was basically the one that was in charge of setting up her computers, installing her tax software. I used to just mess around with the tax software when I was in middle school and high school, and I got to know a little bit about how the tax system works over that time, and I was always very good with math. So after I went to college, I was trying to find myself just like everybody. My original plan was to get into the computer field, and she says, hey, you know what? I already have a tax practice. It's pretty well established. Why don't you come work for me? So I decided to work for her. And she says, yeah, go and get your tax preparer's credentials. I did. And I worked there for a couple years. And eventually, other people said, hey, you know what? You have a lot of talent. Why don't you open up your own tax practice? So I eventually did with some other people. And we started our tax practice in 2010. And ever since then, it's been pretty much growing and growing and growing. And I ended up purchasing a book of business about 10 years ago, and that kind of got me into the clientele that I am now, which most of my clientele usually is mostly in the retired area. Since we live in the desert, we do have a lot of retired clientele. So that's my expertise, but I also have a lot of businesses I work with and individuals. So a lot of my clients are high net worth. I would say that they're more in the top 5% of the US population because a lot of them do have investments. They have real estate, trusts, estates. I prepare a lot of that. So yeah, so pretty much that's how I got involved in the tax business.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
I love that. I've learned
pretty
something new
interesting.
about you. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. So what do you
yeah.
think of Trump paying $750 in taxes? Like, just opinion. This is not legal
You
or
know what?
financial advice, but
Yeah,
I just want to
no,
hear your opinion.
no. Yeah, well, the thing is with Trump paying $750 in taxes, we have to remember that a lot of these tax laws, they're very complex, okay? So obviously, I do have clients sometimes that they are high net worth individuals that they don't pay taxes for several years. But just like because they don't pay taxes for several years, doesn't necessarily mean that they're broke. It's just that the tax system, there's loopholes. There's loopholes that have been created, and a lot of these loopholes, regular tax preparers without a lot of knowledge and experience, they don't have access to be able to. A lot of the times that we prepare tax returns as tax pros, a lot of it has to do with understanding the tax code and how to apply it. So you don't necessarily have to be good at math to be able to prepare tax returns, but I can tell you that a lot of these people that are high net worth, they have the money to be able to hire the best of the best. And these people, a lot of them are very creative. A lot of them, they know about all these tax loopholes because they deal with it a lot with different clients. So I think Trump, just like any other citizen in the United States, they have the right to be able to use these tax loopholes to their advantage. And it's, I mean, it's not his fault. I mean,
Yeah.
if he has you know, who knows how much he pays his, you know, CPAs and accountants and attorneys.
Right.
He must have them on retainer and pay them
Yeah.
millions of dollars.
I think
But
so
you know
too.
what, at the end of the day, look at how much money he's actually saving because of that, you know. And yes, a lot of it might be questionable. A lot of it might be questionable. um if you I've done a lot of research on that. Once I found that out, I started doing a lot of research on how is it that Trump actually did pay that much in tax. And that's for another story. I mean, I can go
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
for, you know, 30, 40 minutes. But in general, I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, if someone else was in Trump's shoes and if they had the money to be able to pay these creative accountants,
I think you're
they
in and out.
would use them and they would away from, yeah. Yeah, I'm cutting in
Oh,
and
you're
out.
back. You're back.
Can you
Yeah,
hear me
you're
better
back.
now?
Yes, you're back. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So basically, Trump, opinion, he has the right to this to, and if people are mad at that, well then, unfortunately, they shouldn't be mad at him. They should be mad at the fact that this government has gotten to the way where it's at right now with the IRS and all these loopholes and all of these different things that have happened throughout the years to get us into this tax law that we're currently in. And you know, it's unfair. Unfortunately, it's unfair, and there's not much that we can do. And the only thing is it's also in a point, the IRS, they go through thousands and thousands of files. And a lot of the times, yes, some of the deductions, they're probably questionable. They're probably a lot, there's a lot of stuff in his tax returns, more than likely, that are kind of like teetering, you know, like whether or not it's legal or not to be able to take the deduction. But at the end of the day, if the IRS auditor or the auditors or the team of people that are going through his tax returns, if they're willing to let that to tax deduction, you know, be interpreted as legal, then he gets the deduction and we move on with life, you know?
Yeah, great
So,
analysis. I love it. Yeah, because as I've gotten old, I went to a very liberal college. We're all like, yeah, tax rich.
yeah,
We're at the time of this recording,
yeah,
our country is just very interesting. Let's just keep it like that.
yeah,
But it's like, the other candidate is
yeah,
proposing 40% taxes on the rich, and I have my own personal
yeah.
thoughts and feelings on it. But my personal standpoint is just
Hmm.
like it's just more incentive to be wealthy. It's just like
Hmm.
you can choose to do what you want with your money, but you and
Hmm.
I both know we don't want to
Yeah,
give away our money to an entity
no,
that we can't
no,
even trust. So um yeah, I guess that's
yeah.
my take. So my question is, do you think there's any difference on how the really rich people view money versus, I guess, like people who are struggling view money?
You know, I really do think that the majority of the people, well, just as from my own personal experience, and I think a lot of people will probably agree, that once you reach a certain amount of income per year, depending on where you live, obviously, because you know, obviously, if you live in the Bay Area or New York City, you know, earning, you know, $100,000 in, or even in Orange County, compared to living, you know, here in the Coachella Valley or any other place in the country, you know, that amount of money will get you a certain standard of living. So, but once you get to a certain point where you can actually pay all your expenses, you know, if you want to travel, you can do so. You go to a restaurant, you order food, and you know, you don't have to worry about, you know, oh, the bill's this much, I'll just pay it. I think once you get to a certain amount, I think a lot of people will agree that anything after that's pretty much gravy, especially if you're already investing money, if you have real estate, you know, maybe, you know, your credit cards, you use them, but you pay them in full, you don't have any interest at the end of the month. Once it gets to that point, I think most people view the money as, okay, how can I sock it away? Because it gets very addicting to save money. It gets addicting. You know, once you start saving money, you get into that rhythm where if you're not saving it and you're spending it on things that are frivolous, I think a lot of wealthy people, they get to that point in that mindset where it's like, oh, I have to keep saving. And so instead of spending, you know, that extra, you know, dollar for almond milk at Starbucks, or, you know, sometimes, you know, if instead of iced tea, they'll get water, or they cut down on those little things because, you know, even though they're wealthy, a lot of them, they actually, they're very stingy. A lot of people that have money, they're very stingy. Sometimes they don't, they don't leave, a lot of tips sometimes. And people say, well, this person's a millionaire. How come he only left me a 10% tip? But that's because sometimes those people, they earned the money. They were broke at one point, and a lot of that's their mindset. You get the people that they love to save, but then you also have other people that are wealthy. Sometimes the money that wasn't earned by them. So those people, they might, just blow the money. Or, athletes, those sometimes athletes, they get all this money all of a sudden. So they blow it on, unnecessary things. And before you know it, even if they're making millions of dollars, they end up broke in a couple years
Yeah.
you know so there is a difference, but I think a lot of it has to do with the money that was worked for versus the money that was inherited. That could also be a factor as to how wealthy people manage their money or look at it versus poorer people. Usually poorer people, they have $1,000 in their bank account. A lot of them, they don't have the access to the financial education, or sometimes they're more ignorant when it comes to finances, so they rather go and blow it on a television instead of putting it into stocks, or instead of saving it for real estate or whatever it is the case.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Yeah.
think you have a very interesting background in terms of your financial education. Can you tell us like what is actually an EA? Because that's what you are, and I don't know if everyone
Yeah.
knows what it is. But can you explain
Yeah.
like what that is?
Well, basically, an enrolled agent, it's someone that they get their credentials straight from the IRS. So the IRS, they allow anyone that actually goes. You obviously you do have to have a certain amount of experience to become an EA, because how do you say, when you go in front of the IRS, you have to take 3 exams, and each of them basically involve a lot of business ethics, representation of individuals, representation of businesses. So all of these exams are basically just an overall picture of someone who already has had experience dealing with the IRS or the state. Now there are people that can go in, take the exams. They're very good at taking exams, and there are a lot of people that can go in there and get their enrolled agent certification without really having that much experience. But at the end of the day, it's pretty tough. Now, obviously, if you wanted to become a CPA, that actually requires a lot more time. Obviously, you got to go to school. It costs a lot more money, and you have to put a lot more effort to become a CPA versus an enrolled agent. Obviously, I was already involved, in the tax profession before I become an enrolled agent. For me, it was a lot easier for me to just go and become an enrolled agent after all the experience I had, and to be able to have that extra step where I can now represent people in front of the IRS, which I've done a lot in the past, and it's been very favorable. I've been able to open up, the amount of clientele that I've been able to service because of that. And also, people look at it and say, hey, you know what, you're an enrolled agent, you have more experience than just a general tax preparer. And yeah, for the most part, I do. And but yeah, enrolled agents, they get their certification straight from the IRS. If I move to a different state, I can go ahead and practice in that different state. I don't have, you remember, CPAs, they're certified public accountants by the state. So if you get certified by California and you can't practice in another state, you would have to basically get your licensing from your state versus a federal level. I can represent people worldwide.
That's awesome.
So
I
yeah.
was gonna do a
Yeah.
battle against pit EAs against CPAs, but I don't know if that's the best thing. Do you have like any jokes about like CPAs or EAs?
CPAs,
Yeah,
you know what, I've heard them, but I can't remember any on the top of my head.
it's
But
all
yeah,
good.
there
They
are
have enough
jokes out
jokes.
there
Yeah,
for sure.
accountants. Yeah, there's so many jokes. Do you feel like there's a general difference between CPA and EA, like in terms of what they do?
Well, see, enrolled agents, EAs, they're more focused on like preparing taxes and tax law in general. Like for me, like as an EA, I mean, yeah, I mean, I could perform, after so much, experience. And, obviously nowadays with the internet, you can take classes online. You can do a lot of research, and you can educate yourself without actually going to school. There's YouTube, and then there's other websites out there that you can sign up for where you can take virtual classes. And I've done a lot of continuing education on different subjects that sometimes CPAs are the ones that usually go into those, virtual classrooms to learn about. So I do have experience, in a way where, if someone wanted me to do accounting or do balance sheets or do profit and loss statements, I can do those type that type of work for my clientele. CPAs, for the most part, just because you're a CPA doesn't mean automatically, hey, this CPA prepares taxes. There's a lot of CPAs out there that don't prepare tax returns. A lot of them focus on certain things. A lot of them can focus on audits. Some of them can focus on tax returns. There's different sections that a CPA can focus on versus an EA is just pretty much taxes and tax law. My whole thing is I focus on individuals and businesses, obviously preparing their tax returns. And yeah, it's just, I think that's the major difference between a CPA. I actually have clients that are CPAs. I prepare their taxes.
I love it.
Yeah. And
They must get
yeah,
sick of their own
those,
taxes, right? They don't even want to look at it.
well, the thing
Or I
is
don't know.
what's, and I think the best compliment I've ever had is where I have like older people that are retired CPAs that they recommend all their family members. They say, hey, this guy's great. I really love him. They're retired and they recommend me. And then when people come to me, they say, hey, you know what? This person recommended me. I've known him for 20, 30 years. He's a retired CPA. He recommended me to you because he really likes, your work ethic and, your professionalism and everything else. And that makes me feel good because then I know, hey, you know what? I got someone that, has been, he's a CPA. So a lot of them, they're very, when I give them a rough draft of their taxes, they know exactly what they're looking for. And so it's a little, at first I was a little nervous because I didn't, obviously, as someone who's starting up their business and then they get these clients that are, have several decades of experience and then they come to me for help. And then I say, well, I really hope that I, can meet their expectations. But like I said, after several years of doing, different people's taxes, I think that's probably one of the best compliments when I get, CPAs that come in and they trust me with my work and they have a lot of questions. I'm able to answer them all and they go away very happy.
Absolutely. I love that. And I can
Yeah.
see why immediately. Yeah, you're super professional. So
Yeah.
what's like your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of the job. Well, first of all, obviously, not all enrolled agents are self-employed. You can be an enrolled agent and work for firms like H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, Liberty Tax. But like for me, I'm self-employed. I run my own business. I think my favorite part of the job is basically running my own schedule, working, remotely if I need to, anywhere I want. But I think another thing about my job, my profession, is I run into a lot of people with problems. When I run into people with problems, like really, really large problems, a lot of them are not warranted, but sometimes it's just letters they receive from people from the IRS, state, whatever, saying they owe tens of thousands of dollars. I have clients sometimes that are involved in Ponzi schemes. Sometimes people they get bamboozled by people
Oh,
that are
that one.
unprofessional.
Yeah.
And so I help them. I help people. I call the IRS. I call the state. I get in touch with them. I get everything settled up. And at the end of the day, sometimes people they have to pay a certain amount of money. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they walk away clean. I have instances that just by people telling me on the phone their problem, I already know the solution. And then people are crying. I get people come to me, hey, you know what? Especially like the older generation, a lot of them think, hey, you know what? I'm going to jail. And I said, no, don't worry. We'll take care of it. And sure enough, I take care of their issue, and it's very satisfying knowing that someone had, a $4,000 penalty I was able to get removed, or someone had, $100,000 they owed in 2015, and now they owe $100, or things like that. I've had several clients. I had one client. They got audited. They had a Ponzi scheme happen to them. Unfortunately, the lady lost $2 million. I had to go to an audit. So I've had a lot of instances where I've had clients like high net worth individuals. I've had people that have been really, really saved, by, the way that I was able to handle, their situation. And I was able to get them, out of a really bad one. But the thing is just like that, I also have some clients that they were dug really, really deep the hole where then I come in and I can do so. So sometimes people get really, really messed up, and in a messed up situation. And at the end of the day, it only help people so much sometimes. I try to do my best, but to me, that's the favorite part of the job.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've helped me out a
So
lot.
yeah,
So I'm
pretty
not
much.
gonna say it
Yeah.
and online. But
Yeah.
yeah, you've helped me out a lot, so I'm not surprised how much you've helped others as well. So
Yeah.
at the time of this recording, it's 2020. Everything is going. It's October. There's so many things going on. Like, what are your thoughts about like the stimulus and just tax laws in general? Like, just what's happening right now? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, the stimulus, I had a ton of questions this year. This year has been extremely challenging. Um, I'm really glad that the government was able to give out $1,200
Yeah.
to a lot of people. I don't think it was enough though. I really don't think. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are hurting. Oh, now I hear from my own personal experience. I keep hearing a lot of people saying there's work. There's a lot of people. They're really busy. A lot of my clients, some of them, they're really extremely busy. And then, so I say, okay, well, it seems like the economy is doing well, but there's also a lot of people that are struggling. Now, it goes both ways. I don't think the government has done enough to be able to help the American public. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the left and right can't come together. I kind of wish that they would, but unfortunately, with this, the way the country has been ran the last decade or 2 decades, I feel like every single election, ever since I can remember as a child, at least I feel like the left and right have become more and more. It's very hard for them to come together,
Yeah.
and it's getting tougher this year. I feel like from 2016 to 2020, it's a different world already, and
Yeah.
it feels like it was just yesterday, but I feel like it's gotten tougher for the two left and right to come together to be able to do something. People complain that the government doesn't do anything, but it's because the government, they can't come to a conclusion. They you have Nancy Pelosi ripping documents. You have you
Which is
know
hilarious. I
yeah,
sorry, but
yeah,
I just think it's I don't
yeah,
even agree with her, and I think it's funny. But you're right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
is she
And
80?
I mean,
She's
I know
70?
that this.
Is she 70
I don't
years
know.
old? I hope when I'm that old I can be that petty. It's just really
Uh,
fun for
I
me.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's somewhat unprofessional to do it in public, but I mean that we're dealing with a lot of. I mean, the media, shows us only certain things. I could only imagine, what it's like. I mean, it's we're not seeing the entire thing. I don't think that we're seeing the full picture. And there's always two sides to a story. So sometimes, people are right. You have the right wing media and the left wing media, and then everybody's trying to, show us, the version of their reality of what they think. There's a lot of opinionated news out there too. So we just have to be very careful, and then take two sides, and then just you look at Fox News, or you look at CNN. I mean, I look at both, sometimes, and then I kind of like just kind of garner my own personal opinion on what I see. But yeah, it's very difficult, right now with 2020 and everything that's happened. I think that the government needs to step in and do more for the public. I don't think they've done enough.
Yeah,
I
for
don't think
sure.
they've done enough.
Sure. Yeah. So you brought up a really good point, which got me thinking. So, like, who actually changes the tax laws? Is it like we elect the representatives and the representatives elect the laws, or because I was reading Robert Kiyosaki, like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and his
Yes.
explanation is,
Yeah.
well, it's okay that Amazon doesn't pay any taxes because they generate jobs, and then those are what's going to drive the economy. So the fact that they don't pay taxes keeps them in the U.S. So my
Mhm.
question is like, can individuals lobby to change tax laws, or like is it just kind of like the republic, like you elect another next person and the next person goes up? Like, is there any like sort of
Mhm.
tax code lobbying changes from the ground up, or is it kind of we have to elect the representatives?
I think a lot of it has happened over the years with people electing certain people that are in office, that they
Yeah.
go ahead and they're the ones who eventually push for these tax laws to become enabled into the general public. So a lot of the stuff that you see in the tax code right now, it's been over the years it just kind of accumulates, and then as people get into office, they tend to push for certain things. I mean, you hear about, like how much tax we pay with our, and this is not just federal income tax we're talking about. We're talking about sales taxes. We're talking about taxes on purchases of vehicles. We're talking about state income taxes. Like all of that, eventually it's all trickled down from the people that represent us. Those people are the ones that go out there and then they say, hey, you know what? That's why it's very important to vote, because if you're voting for certain people, those people are out there trying to make sure that certain things happen, or that, or like the gas taxes when you go and fuel up your car. A lot of it has to do with, you know, the way that, you know, the state decides to go, and a lot of it has to do with the people that we elect. So it all comes down to that. It all comes down eventually to the people that we elect. Those are the people that are going to be, you know, lobbying. You know, people are going to be lobbying for them to be able to make those changes. So yeah, and it's just over time. Over time, you know, they have certain things, and then obviously, you know, when we vote, we also vote for certain propositions as well. So you say, oh, vote for Proposition 13 or Proposition 14. A lot of that also has to do with how much tax you're going to pay in certain situations. That's obviously in the local side, but when it comes to the federal side, yeah, that all gets, you know, all the people that we elect, they're the ones who eventually are the ones who try to come up with the solutions. Or you have the Trump tax law that was enacted as well. All those things are, you know, the people in Washington, those are the people that eventually make these things into reality.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that end up having to pay the piper.
Yep, I guess
So
middle can't be in the middle. If you're poor, you don't pay, and if you're rich, you don't pay. So yeah, I guess that's.
yeah,
So what
yeah.
are the what are I think the biggest tax mistakes that people make?
You know what? The biggest tax mistakes, I'm just trying to think what, I think I took like some, trying to see here, guy. Okay, yeah, now I know. So the biggest tax mistakes people make, I think a lot of it revolves around keeping proper documentation or keeping notes. So I have a lot of clients that are self-employed, and a lot of my clients are self-employed. They tend to they don't take proper notes as to, like, for meals and entertainment, travel, vehicle expenses. You know, when you're out there, you know, as a pool guy or landscaper or construction or whatever it is that you decide to do. Some people have like different things that they do for their work that requires for them to keep proper documentation. You always have to be proactive instead of reactive, which means that you want to have this in case you ever get audited, which there, I have clients that, you know, 30 years in the profession, never been audited, always keeping notes. And then that's just the way of life. Like, well, I have all these notes, but I never use them. Now I'm just going to shred them because I never use them. But then what happens if you get unlucky and you say, oh, you know what, we want to see, you know, last year's, you know, documents, then you have them. Here you go, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
versus risking, you know, having the government come back and kick down your deductions. Obviously, proper record keeping is very important, you know, for that. I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of I run into with, you know, people that are self-employed is actually anybody who prepares tax returns that has any type of deduction, whether it be for children, whether it be, you know, because you have a business, whether it be because, you know, maybe you do gambling or real estate deductions, anything. Proper documentation will set you free, especially with the IRS, the state. And unfortunately, a lot of the times when people come with problems, a lot of the times, a lot of people don't have the proper documentation. So sometimes I have to help people recreate. I have to help people recreate documentation somehow, whether it be sitting down with them, saying, okay, you know, how many places do you visit per day? You know, what is it that you do? Get me these bank statements, get me this, get me that. Okay, you don't have this, go look for your, you know, who's your vendor, go contact them. Or I always try to look at things in a, like I said, you know, preparing taxes and helping people. A lot of it doesn't have to do with math. A lot of it has to do with being creative and like just kind of like sitting down and tackling the problem in ways that sometimes they don't think about it. Like, oh, why don't you try this? Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Okay, well then go look for this. And then little by little we start putting the pieces together, and I'm able to help people, you know, fix whatever problem that they have because of the mistakes that they did in the past, you know. So yeah, I think that like self-employed people, they have to know how to separate their personal life and their business life. And I think that like I said, I think that's the biggest problem that I see,
yeah.
you know.
So
Uh-huh.
it's an issue for me too. So I totally.
It's an issue for most people. Most of my clientele, you have to, like, it's repetition. When you start a business, it's repetition. You know, it's kind of like a habit that you do. It's a habit,
Yeah, mhm, for
and
sure.
the more you do it, the easier it gets. but yes, it's very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you wish people knew about taxes?
What do I wish? Oh, what do I wish that people? Well, first of
Yeah.
all, I really do think that people, there's not enough education, I think, in, the school system. I don't think there's enough education out there. A lot of people are very ignorant, I think, when it comes to taxes. I think it's very important for people to be able to have like general knowledge of how taxes work. If, like in high school, if there was a, somehow, incorporated where like, hey, you know what, we're going to show you, based on current tax law, how taxes generally work. They don't have to get into too much detail, but I would say it's a good idea for people to be aware, because there's a lot of shysters out there that they prepare taxes for people that don't have the proper licenses. I've ran into a lot of problems with clients that sometimes they come in with copies of last year's tax returns, and there's deductions on there that they didn't even know were on there. And they say, well, why did I get such a high refund? Well, did you know that your previous tax preparer put in that you had $1,000 of donations? No, I didn't. Well, or, did you know that your previous tax preparer did this on the tax return? No, I didn't. But yet you got the refund, but you didn't know what you were signing. So I think a lot of it has to do with, clients understanding, just in general. Like I do have a lot of clients that do understand, they ask questions, and that's good, because I feel like then we're on the same page. They kind of have that general understanding of, how taxes work. And especially for those clients that, they have quarterly payments due, it's also good, for people to know, hey, you know what, my quarterly payments due on this date. If I don't pay by this date, there's going to be a penalty or so forth, or, just little things like that. And I think a lot of it also has to do with experience now, because since you don't get that education in school, the only other people, not unless, you're savvy and you go on YouTube or you go on the internet. Like I said, YouTube is a really big platform for education now too, as well. But, yeah, I mean, if you don't go on your own and you don't do your own research, the other outlet would be for you to have a tax professional that'll sit down with you and explain to you, hey, this is how it works. And then as an individual should take notes on that and keep up with that. And then, if you ever have any questions, you can say, hey, you know what, last time you said this is how it works. And if they say, yeah, it's the same way still, tax laws haven't changed, you continue to do things a certain way, because as far as what that's the way it's been done for the last couple of years. And you can have, like I said, I think it's very good for people to know at least a little bit about tax returns. That way they don't get bamboozled, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of people out there that they will do things behind your back. I've had several instances, like I said, people, they get bamboozled by shady tax preparers, and then they say, well, why? Well, because you didn't know what you were signing. You just signed your life away, and this guy reported deductions that you had no clue existed on your tax return.
That's crazy.
You
Wow,
know?
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So what should somebody look for in like a tax professional?
Well, the thing is with tax professionals, I really do think that one of the first things that you should look at is referrals. Referrals, whether it be, if you were referred by a client, obviously that person's going to tell you, yes, this person's great. Or a lot of the times, if you have, like on websites, like sometimes people will go to like Nextdoor or Craigslist, whatever, it would be a good idea for you to call the person and say, hey, you know what, do you have referrals? And then can I call these referrals, and then you can kind of get an idea, but I think one of the biggest things too about a tax professional is you have to find someone also that's honest, because like I said, there's a lot of dishonest people out there. And I get a lot of people that say, hey, you know what, may I interview you first? I say, yeah, that's fine, let's set up an appointment. Like around this time, actually, anywhere like from between October and December, I do get people say, hey, you know what, I got referred, to you by someone. Do you mind if we sit down and talk for a bit? And they usually come to the office and we sit down for, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and we talk a little bit. And then they say, hey, you know what, I really like your professionalism. Let me get one of your business cards to set up an appointment with you later. But yeah, obviously get references, if possible. And then another thing is, um, not all, how do you say it? Tax pros are compatible with everybody.
True.
So
Very true.
sometimes people will come in and, the vibe is not there, and I never see them again, which is fine. I mean, it's not your fault. It's not the tax pro's fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's just this world has so many different personalities.
For sure.
Sometimes I've had to fire clients, just like clients fire me, or they can, I can fire a client. I mean, it works both ways. So yeah, definitely. I think communication's a big one too. You have communication between you and the tax pro. Like me, like I always try to have that open communication with my clients. Say, hey, anything you need, just let me know. Call me, text me, email me, whatever. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So communication's a real big thing.
Yeah, for sure. And you're really good with it too, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
And how do you keep up with all the tax law changes? Like, how do you continue your education and keep up to date?
The tax law changes, I keep up with a lot of tax law changes. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I do get like dozens of emails per week from different agencies that I've signed up with, especially since I've gone to a lot of different seminars over the years in different parts of the country. And so I've gotten to network with a lot of different vendors that they provide, any new changes in like different states or federal tax laws, or even with the IRS, they have this thing called quick alerts. Sometimes I'll send you like different little things like, hey, you know what? There's this form that's going to get drafted and it's going to go into public use. Or sometimes like I have to do 24 hours minimum as an enrolled agent, 24 hours of continuing education per year in order to keep my credentials. So yeah, all of that along with my life basically revolves around tax preparation. So um, I YouTube feeds hundreds of videos all the time. The more I watch YouTube videos about tax law and LLCs, corporations, and changes, the more I get fed, suggestions. So it's all the time. I'm just constantly just reading up on it. And then obviously, like I said, it's good to keep up, on the news as well. A lot of times stuff that I see on the news, it's already old, because I've gotten, yeah, you get stuff on the news. It's like a day later or hours later, and I already got an email in the morning
Mm.
and they're doing a news segment at night. It's like, oh, I already know that. So a lot of the stuff, it's all those emails I get too that really help. When I wake up in the morning, I get a feed of emails, and the ones that look interesting, I read up. And sometimes it's only, maybe 10 minutes in the morning. That's all I need on a daily basis to keep up with anything that's new.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hmm.
Love that.
Yeah.
And what's something surprising about your job that most people don't know?
You know what? I really do think that a lot of people that I deal with, a lot of people think that, well, they probably think that tax people, that they're very antisocial. Like
Which
people
is
that are just like
hilarious. Knowing you, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you're already very professional on this interview because but anyways, yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So like a lot of people think like, oh yeah, like you're an accountant, or you think, oh, the person's in front of the computer all day just typing away, or they don't like. Yeah, there obviously, I've networked, over the years, and you could tell that, yeah, the older CPAs, older accountants, a lot of them, you can kind of tell that some of them do look pretty grumpy. I mean, maybe dealing with so
I
many
don't blame
problems over the years.
them.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
shocked you're
But
still like happy as a person after dealing with so much
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But a lot of people, like I said, they think that oh, tax pro, you must be antisocial. But I think it's the opposite. My business, everything that I've done over the years, I have to have very good people skills.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
when people come, a lot of my clients, they're just very good. Like I feel like they're friends.
Yeah.
You have to kind of have that connection with your clients and like remember their names, remember children, what they do, and then obviously the more complex their tax situation is, the more you get to learn about them too. And so it's like if you're like a good friend basically, because over the years you get to know everything about them, like what they like, you know a lot of the times people will come in and if my appointment's an hour and a half, sometimes, yes, I'm doing the tax return because they bring me the documents, but most of the time we're talking about things about their life, or about what I've done this past year or so forth. So sometimes it's just chit chatting. I feel like sometimes I get paid just to chit chat with people about their life, you
You're a
know
money
and
therapist.
I'm a money therapist. Yeah, people will come in and sometimes they'll explain to me their problems. Sometimes, even though I'm preparing the tax return, sometimes they'll go into like offbeat subjects about certain things. And then I'm just chit chatting about like, well, you know what, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that. Even though I tell them, hey, you know what, this is not financial advice, but maybe you should try this. And some people have, acted upon those certain things. Say, hey, you know what, it helped, thank you. Or sometimes people come in, with problems and they cry, and then I help them. Hey, you know what, maybe I don't think it's that bad. Maybe you should do this or that. And I mean, I think that, that to me, it's just a lot of people don't realize that, especially if I have like over 10 appointments in one day, it can get very draining
Yeah. Oh my
because
God. I
I'm
can't believe you
constantly
do that.
talking to people. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, 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 yeah. Get 10 appointments, 12 appointments, and everybody that comes in, like during tax season, if I do, 10, 12 taxes in one day, every client has a different story. Even if one takes half an hour or an hour, it's still pretty draining because, you're there, doing the taxes, make sure they're correct, explain to them, make sure they understand what they're signing. And on top of that, chit chatting away their life. And, everybody, obviously as humans, we all have this energy. And so when people come in, sometimes people come with low energy. And if you're not careful, obviously that low energy can drag you down. So, or you can give them good energy, they can give you bad energy. So you just have to be very careful as to, just making sure that you're always, on the up and up, and that people can feel the good vibe, and
Yeah.
then they leave the office with that good vibe. So
Yeah.
yeah, other than that, making sure that all their tax deductions get applied and people walk away happy. So
Yeah. Very important job.
yeah.
Super important. So, how can we hire you? How can we learn more about you and connect?
Well, I have a lot of my clientele this year. I've actually expanded a lot of my remote, clientele this year, mainly because of the fact that obviously, people don't want to come into the office. So, I mean, I can be reached at Henry at frntax.com, link below. And also my phone number, 760-772-2007. That's my office number. I can also be reached there. And yeah, I mean, I've prepared taxes for people all over the world. I have clients in different countries. I have clients that have lived in South America, clients that have lived in Mexico, Singapore, just different places, that people live. And I can actually prepare their tax returns because nowadays with the computer, everything can be done remotely using DocuSign, email, fax. There's really nothing that can stop us from preparing tax returns from anyone, anywhere. So yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to reach out to me, have any questions, I mean, for the most part, I do talk to people on the phone. I mean, if it's just something simple, they want to talk for a bit about, certain situation, I don't charge. People just call me, say, hey, you know what, I have this issue. Can you help me? Obviously, if we repair the tax return, there will be a fee. But other than that, I do get a lot of people calling me and say, hey, you know what, I have this and this question. Maybe you can answer it. For the most part, I mean, I don't charge people for that. To me, that information, if I can help them out, I'll take the time and I'll be able to help them out as much as I can.
You're about to be flooded by requests. I can't believe you just put out your phone number, but that's awesome.
Oh well,
More
hey,
help for other people. Yeah, more business. So, thank you
yeah,
so much,
yeah,
Henry, for this. You can't be a millionaire without a good accountant. So please get a good
yeah,
accountant. Contact
yeah,
him if you have any questions. Thank you so much for answering my questions. This is
yeah,
really important and a really great conversation. Thank you so much.
yeah. Thank you.